Welcome back. Now that we have the item task, it's time to add the adapter for our RV card list for this recycler view. All right, so we will need an adapter, of course. Each time that we use a recycler view, we of course need to give it an adapter. So let's prepare that. Okay, and we're going to do that in the adapters folder. So let's create a new file class, and I'm just going to call this one task list items adapter. All right, so here this one will be an open class so that we can inherit from it, and we will use the default constructor here as we have it, private val context. So pretty much the same thing as we have with the board items adapter. It's going to be very similar, but there are some minor changes here as well. So private var list, which is an array list of task. So we will need to have a new class called task. And do we have it already actually? Let me see. Yes, we have it already. Okay, so we created this little task which has a title and is created by. So perfect, we prepared it already. So now we can go ahead and import it. So import task and then import context as well. And here it's the Android context, and when it comes to task there are also multiple choices, and I want to use the one that we created. So EU tutorial project management or project manage, that's the name of our project. Okay, and now of course this should inherit from recycler view adapter with recycler view dot view holder. All right, nothing too fancy here. We've done that multiple times before. So let's close the bracket and just like that. Okay, so once we add all of that like this, we need to make sure that recycler view is there, but as it seems the error disappeared, so it's there. And now we can go ahead and implement the missing function. So implement members here. As usual, let's all of those members, or let's add all of those members. So we have the onCreate view holder, get item count, and onBind view holder. Now this time we will need to make minor changes to what we usually would do. Okay, usually we would just take the whole space available and our view holder would just be the whole width, right? But this time what I will do is I will just make it 70%. Okay, so you can see here it's roughly 70% of the screen width that we are using, and that's what I want to do. So I want this recycler view to, of course, also just have a certain percentage of the screen available. So once we swipe over to the other side, we can still see that there are more lists. Okay, so that's the idea behind this. You can, of course, change the value if you like 80 or 90% more than what I'm using here, but I'm just going to work with 70%. So in order to do that, I will need to create a function which calculates that correctly. Okay, so it has to calculate the width into density pixels. So let me just create a new function here which will do that. Private fun int to dp will return an integer. Okay, and what this will do is it will just do this dot or slash resources get system dot display metrics, and here resources needs to be imported so that we can use it, and it's the Android resources. And here we can now get the display metrics dot density, and now we want to transfer that into an integer, so to int, and that is it. Looks a little confusing, I'd say, but what it does is basically it allows us to get the density of the screen and convert that into an integer so that we see how big the density pixel value is, so that we can then adjust our width of the application accordingly, or of this adapter, list items adapter. So we get the density pixel from the pixel, and now let's get the pixel from the density pixel. So now we do it the other way around. So let me just copy this code here, because now we use 2px. Okay, so you maybe recall dp stands for density pixel, px stands for pixel, and by the way, I think I'll just use dp with d capital and p non-capitalized. So 2dp here and 2px here, and now this time it's not dividing by, but it's multiplying by, and we want to multiply it with the density 2int. Okay, so the one way is to divide it, the other way is to multiply it. So now we have both directions. So this one gets us the pixel from density pixel, and this one gives us the density pixel from pixel. Now, as we always do, we create a little class here, which is my view holder, view recycler view dot view holder, and here we just pass in the view. So view here. Now we need to import view, alt enter, import it, and it's android.view that we want to use. So this view holder describes an item view and metadata about its place within the recycler view. So that's the idea behind this class here. Okay, now let's go ahead and implement all of the functions that we have here. So the easiest one will be get item count. So here we're just gonna return the list.size. That's an easy one, right? Then we have our function, which is the onBind view holder. Here we first of all get the position int, and of that position we can create our model, which is list at the position. So whatever list we get at any position given, we will get the model from it. So in one case it was the board, in this case it will be the task. So now our model will be the task because we are in the task list items adapter, and here at the top we get the list of tasks of, that's the idea, right, of array list task. Okay, so now we get the model, and we can now check if the holder, that is our recycler view holder, if that one is the my view holder, so the one that we just prepared here at the bottom. Okay, so if that's the case, then go ahead and check if the position is equal to list.size minus 1. So if the position is equal to the list size, whatever that is, let's say we have no entries there, minus 1, then we want to display our task list text view. Okay, so then we want to display this add list text view pretty much, right? So let's just do that. Let's just say holder dot item view dot tv add task list visibility should be view dot visible. Okay, what do we want to make invisible or gone in that case? Well, all of the rest, right? So holder item view ll underscore task item visibility should be set to view dot gone. Okay, so what is this ll task item? It's basically, as you can see, everything underneath. So this whole part here, which is all of the stuff that has to do with the individual cards. So every little task item that we have inside of our list, that should not be visible then. Okay, so that's the idea here behind this code that we have here. So the text view should be visible if we have no entries in our list, and the other stuff should not be visible. But if we have an entry in our list, then we want to do it the other way around. Okay, so then we just basically want to do the same code as here, only that now this one should be gone and this one should be visible. So this TV add task list, if you look at it, so here I only want to display this add list if there is no list. As soon as there is a list, I don't want to have this add list icon here. instead I want to have the title of the element with all of the different cards. And if there are no cards, of course I want to prepare the cards. So I want to create a new card or add a new card. Okay, so this is our onBind view holder. As you can see, it's a little more complex than what we have had before. Then we need to look at our create view holder. That's this one here. So what we want to do here is, of course, to inflate our view, which is our item task. So basically this whole XML that we prepared. So val view layout inflator dot from context inflate r dot layout dot, and it's this item task. Now this of course only works if we import R. And now the inflate function, as you might recall, needs some more information here. So then it needs to have the view group and the attached to root, which I'm gonna set to false, as we have done multiple times before by default. Okay, and now we want to set the linear layout as the layout parameters. So layout parameters, layout params is going to be a linear layout dot layout parameters, so layout params, and here we can define the layout parameters of the linear layout that we want to use. And the thing is, I want to use the parent width, so the width of the whole screen, and multiply that with 0.7, and then make an integer out of it again, because this function here, this layout params, needs an integer. And then I can pass in the layout params wrap content. So this is something that we have not done before, but basically what I'm doing with this code here is I'm just saying, okay, the view holder should be 0.7 times the width of the parent of the screen, pretty much, that we have available, and make an integer out of it, because that's what the layout params requires. So it requires a width and a height. So as the width, we just use 0.7. As the height, we say use wrap content. So use only as much height as you require. So that's basically what we define here with the layout params. Okay, then basically what we're doing here is we do XML stuff, right? So we just create our own code to use XML stuff. Okay, now we can go ahead and set the margin for our layout params. So basically this layout params variable is just there to add a lot of parameters that you want to have for your layout. And I'm just going to say that it should create some margins or have some margins. I'm going to use 15 to dp, and then I need to make it to pixels again, to px again. And then I need to say what the top and the bottom is. So basically what I'm doing here is I want to have margins at the left and right hand side, but none at the top and bottom. Okay, so I'm just saying here it should be, so by the way, it's like this, and then we have the comma here, so then it's 0 and 40 to dp to pixels and 0. Okay, so this looks a little more confusing, but basically I'm just saying, okay, I want to have 15 margin towards the left and 40 margins towards the right. Okay, because look at margins. Left is the first entry, top is the second, right is the third, and bottom is the last one. So as the first entry, I'm saying use 15 density pixels, then 0, then 40, then 0. So you can see why we need this 2dp and 2px here. It's a little counterintuitive, but that's how we have to handle this situation here. All right, and then we can set those layout parameters for our view. We can just say layout parameters, the ones that we prepared, should be the one used for our view here. And then we can return my view holder with the view that we just prepared. So now everything comes together, right? It was a little confusing before, I think, but we have prepared this view holder, which requires a view, which basically is just a recycle of your view holder. So it inherits from it. But we want to use our own view holder here. We want to return our own view holder with all of those settings. So we create a new view. We say it should be this item task view, which is this XML file that we prepared here. But then we adjust it in the code. So then we just say, okay, just take 0.7 of the width and wrap your content towards the height. Then have a little margin towards the left and right hand side. And then we just assign those layout parameters that we prepared here in those lines. We assign them to the view that we prepared here at the top. And then we pass it to our my view holder, which will then be the one that will be created once the screen is displayed or once this adapter is prepared. Okay, so this is the task list item adapter. Now let's use it in our task list activity, because that's what we prepared it for, right? So now in fun board details, so I'm setting up the action bar, right? But at the same time, I also need to load all of the tasks. So I'm just going to say add task list should be a task, which I'm going to import here. And the first task will be the add list. So it's just the resources that we prepared. So it's a string here. It's this add list string, this one here. Okay. So then once I have that, I can use that task list to be added to my task list. So it looks a little weird, but basically what I'm saying is my task list of the board. So our board has a task list. So let's look at the board here. You can see it has this task list. And now I'm adding to the task list, which is this array list here inside of our board. I am adding the add task list. So just this text here, which is just gonna say add a list, even though it's not really part of the task list, right? It's just a UI element, but it's just a workaround that we're working with here. So that's how we can make our UI completely code dependent or based on events instead of just being a fixed UI that we have there. And then we can go ahead and set our RV task list layout manager to be the linear layout manager that we've come to love with this, and the setting that element should be horizontally positioned and reverse layout is set to false. Okay. So let me put that in 2 lines so it's a little more readable. Then I'm just going to say that it should have a fixed size. So set has fixed size is set to true. And now we can prepare the adapter. So let's go ahead and create an adapter, which will be our task list items adapter. So it's this class that we prepared, of course. And here we need to pass in the context and the list that we want to display. And it's our board.task list that we want to pass. Okay, and now we can set that as the RV task list adapter. So now we can say, okay, the adapter that we just prepared is going to be the adapter of the RV task list. So this whole thing that we prepared in this items adapter is just here for this line of code here actually. Okay, so it's just this the task list items adapter that we prepared where we needed to pass in the context and the task list of our board. And that's what we get here. We get a bunch of tasks, an array list of tasks, and then we can do all of the magic that we just prepared. And now before we test that, we of course need to add all of the images that we are still lacking. Okay, so if we look at our item task list, which we prepared in the last video, we still have a bunch of errors here. I see cancel, I see done. So all of these images are still missing. So let's add those to our project as well. Therefore, you can download the project, which is assigned to this chapter, and then you can go to your drawables folder. Actually, to your resources folder is going to be fine. So show in Explorer, and then do the same thing with the other project, and then paste all of the drawable stuff in here. So just mark all of that and paste it in from the other project. Okay, so just copy this code here and paste it into this one and skip the files that we have already prepared. All right, and now at this point we can run the application. I hope the errors should disappear or will disappear. So let's run it again. Now we have this IC cancel, IC delete, IC done, IC edit. So these are the images that are used now. Okay, and there we are. Now let's open up a board. Let's see if our application crashes. No, it doesn't. You can see the add list text view is here. Okay, so that is it for this video. It is a lot of stuff that comes together now. So it's really important that you have seen all of the basics and learned all of the basics before to understand all of the new stuff that we're using here. But I think at this point we have prepared everything we need to do in order to now load the data and display it. And there are still, of course, quite some changes that we will need to do on the way, but so far I think so good. And now let's go over to the next video, and thanks a lot for still being with me after this long video. See you in the next one.